Welcome to Paradox Jukebox, an unconventional podcast for the unconventional musician. This podcast is brought to you by Music on the Move Studios, a woman-led company working to help musicians move their careers forward through education and live events. I'm your host, Caitie Thompson, and on the show today we have Mr. Mark Abrams from PureMix.com and Vaughan Music Studios out of Columbus, Ohio. Mark and I go way, way back. I actually interned for him back in 2011. I ended up working for Vaughan Music Studios around 2012, and then in 2017 he produced my EP. So I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's not only a fantastic human, but he is an incredible producer engineer. And one of the things that I think I loved the most about Mark was that as we were in studio together, he really listened to me as an artist, and he took my feedback and gave really good feedback, gave really good constructive criticism, and he pushed me to do the very best take every single time. So in today's show, Mark is going to talk about some really cool tips and tricks for any artist who has never been into the studio, but then maybe you've actually spent some time in the studio. He's got things that you need to think about as you launch yourself into producing your own music, and also what it means to have the right team behind you when you go in studio. I'm also going to play you a track that Mark produced for an artist named Buggy. Links will be in the show notes, so if you want to check it out, go ahead. So this particular track is called New World, and I think it is really, really cool. So sit back and enjoy New World by Buggy, produced by Mark Abrams. Welcome, everybody, to Paradox Jukebox. My name is Caitie, your host, and today I have Mr. Mark Abrams with me. Mark, say hi, friend.
Hey, how's it going, Caitie?
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. So just a brief little intro for Mark, everybody. He is a fantastic producer engineer, works at Vaughan Music Studios in Columbus, Ohio / Upper Arlington, I guess. So Mark, paint a little bit of a picture for our listeners. Tell them what it is that you do for VMS, what it is that you do for PureMix, and maybe we'll also talk about some favorite microphones and plugins.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that intro. It's very, very sweet. So my time is kind of a split job between Vaughan Music Studios, like you mentioned, and then PureMix, which you mentioned earlier. We'll kind of get to talking about. And my role at Vaughan Music Studios is studio manager, head engineer, also help out with operations of the whole company. In kind of recent times, I've especially like with the pandemic and everything, I've been sort of stuck at home and missing my console over there and everything. But I've mostly been doing a lot of mixing projects, but going back a ways, we built that facility in 2012, and I got to starting in late 2010. We started the discussions and planning for it and stuff, and I got to be a part of the entire construction and design of the facility, which was a really big kind of blessing and fun part of that job was getting to design that. space. So.
Fiberglass included.
Yeah, well, we have some stories together with that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, maybe that part wasn't so fun. We both did some good damage to our lungs, I think.
I'm positive that we did.
Yeah, Caitie helped me, do all the 703 in the place, and yeah, we definitely handled a lot of hazardous materials, all in the name of music.
All in the name of music, yes.
Yeah.
But the control room was designed by Carl Tatz, wasn't it?
It was, yes, yeah. So I worked closely with Carl, and kind of, so here's kind of what our needs are. I wanted a nice large live room for gigantic drums like everybody does, and we were able to kind of pull that off. The live room has it's 1,000 square foot live room, 28-foot ceilings, and the thing can go from fairly tight to being an echo chamber if you want it to be. So it's really fun. And then large booth as well for like a drier drum set kind of sound. And Carl was very instrumental, especially in the design of the control room. He's got a lot of very particular sort of criteria for control room monitoring that he does, and it's a great effect too. So yeah, that was a really good experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, if you're in the Columbus area and you haven't been to VMS yet, you need to go take a studio tour. COVID permitting, obviously, but one of the most beautiful studios in the Columbus area by far.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely give us a call. Come by. It's fun.
Sure.
We like to do tours and hang out and meet people. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that there's a link to VMS in the show notes as well. That way, people can click the link and go book a tour. That'd be cool.
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So talk about maybe some of the artists that and producers that you've worked with at VMS. Just a couple highlights for us.
Yeah, and that's one of the really fun things about that place. It's a large building on a very, very busy street in Columbus on Route 33, and so there's a lot of drive-by traffic with it, and we have a giant sign out front that it's called Vaughan Music Studios. So it says Vaughan Music Studios on the outside, and the words music studios definitely get a lot of interest. So it's one of the crazy things about that place is just basically having this billboard on the side of this really busy street brings in so much off street traffic, I guess, that we just meet so many different people, which is really a blessing for anybody who's kind of in the studio world. It can be really difficult, and a lot of times like walk-in traffic isn't really something that happens because we don't have storefronts, and a lot of times we want to have these nondescript buildings because we don't want to be robbed and everything too. So that's been a really kind of unique thing about that facility in general that don't really see like a ton in other places. So that's been great because of all the different talent that walks through the door. We are moving at a really fast pace in there. So there's days that we'll see up to 3-4 artists in a single day, and they're kind of high-fiving each other as they're walking in and out of the door. Which the really awesome part about that is that it builds a sense of community. So you have like this pocket of artists that are all kind of becoming buddies because they're like, oh yeah, we recorded the same place. That's awesome. Let's do shows together, and and so on. And that was another thing that we tried to foster, which you were a big part of at the beginning, was we tried this YouTube video series sort of in the early days of people doing those, which is like a multicam setup thing that was completely community driven. And I think we did like 100 episodes or something like that before things got a little too busy to keep it going. But it was called CIMU. If anybody's interested in searching that on YouTube, you can watch some of the bands there. But that's so on the end, the band side, the artist side, it's just been a really diverse set of music. So it can go from working on jazz in the morning to piano ballads and rock bands, and then usually evenings are there's a lot of hip hop business that comes in for the after hours stuff, and they'll keep the room rolling until 4 or 5 a.m. sometimes. So
wow.
it's really fun. So it's definitely moving around the clock.
Well, I'm sure as an engineer, I mean, that's got to be fantastic for your skills, because you're always intaking new content, and maybe you're able to apply it to to some of these other genres. So like if you're doing jazz in the morning, how cool would it be to like infuse some of that in some of your rock and your hip hop that's later on in the day?
That's a great comment, and very true. And it also, like, that community thing sort of naturally makes that happen sometimes. We've had cases where like a trumpet player is walking out of the building, and a hip hop client's walking in, and they're like, I need trumpet on this track. Can you come downstairs? And then they like work out an arrangement real quick, and then they, bang it out or whatever. It's really fun.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And then on the, producer side, it's been really, really fun. There's we're both Columbus, Ohio people, and there's a really well-known producer that's from here that I got to see just bloom from the beginning. I used to help answer his Pro Tools questions in his like teenage years, and then now he did a lot of work at the studio, and now he's off making records with the Timberland team and Justin Timberlake and Coldplay and Kanye West and all kinds of people. And that's Angel Lopez, who everybody should check out, because he's, despite like the name drop list of clients or whatever, he's just an amazing, amazing person, and hasn't changed one bit since I met him, like, all those years ago or whatever.
That's
so
awesome.
That's been fun, because it's all different levels of talent coming into the studio, and it's just a great place to be.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so cool, because I remember years ago you talking about Angel. That's wonderful that his career has grown to such heights. I mean, that's got to make you feel proud.
Yeah, it's amazing. He's so deserving of it too. And for anybody who's interested, I definitely recommend seeking out content with him, because his story is so great. And he's done podcasts where he talks about this, but he was making beats in his tiny apartment. Like, I think his studio setup was actually, they took the closet doors off so he could put a studio desk in it. And he was, working on a couple of projects with me, and then always working on music at his apartment. And one day he just DM'd Timberland on Instagram, and, he was like, just told him how much he meant to him, and put a beat in there. And he actually, like, he put his phone number in the message, and he actually got a phone call like a couple minutes later.
Holy
and he
shit.
Thought somebody was joking with him. He thought it was like somebody else in his apartment playing a joke on him.
Right.
And he was like, come out to LA, let's meet. And yeah, Angel's amazing, and he well deserving. He's such a great guy overall. So
that's an awesome story. Wow.
Yeah. I love to brag on him. Sorry, because I'm so proud of him.
No, you have every right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So let me ask you this, Mark. So for artists that maybe don't have a whole lot of experience, what kind of tips and tricks would you give them when they're booking their first studio session?
Yeah. So I think this conversation is great. And I actually have a blog series that I'm working on it'll be coming out pretty soon about this exact thing.
Awesome.
And it's a topic that I think applies to artists who've never been in the studio, but also to those who have experience, because I think that there's processes that can always be improved.
Sure.
So starting off, for somebody who's never been to a studio before, I think that some of the most important things that they could do in pre-production are one, just kind of looking through their catalog of like favorite music and searching for solid references. And that's not to say to be a copycat, but it's to have an idea of, one of my friends, Brian Lucy, says, like, playing within the fence of, he calls it the recorded history of music. And that's like an interesting way of putting it. So you kind of establish these points of like, this is something that I think sounds good that's similar to what I do. This is something that sounds good that's completely different than what I do. This is a vocal that I think is, it sounds great. Here's one that doesn't sound so great. And just kind of like building up this internal library of like, what is a sound that I'm actually searching for? Because especially going in the first time, it's not really something that you think of. You just think, I have these songs, I want to go into the studio and I want to put them down. So developing kind of a framework first of like, what is your vision for your music? Try to hear it in your head. Listen to some of these other things to get sort of a reference point of where, I don't want to say like a bar because it's not a competition, but just kind of like a reference of what you would be shooting for. So just going in with a general idea of what the sound is in your head, and that'll help you communicate with whoever the team is. And then that kind of goes, we'll talk about team in a second actually, but next part would just be like, your preparation, things that you can do ahead of time, or just making sure that your instrument is in great shape, that it sounds as good as you can get it to sound. And, sometimes studios have instruments there, but that is also a thing that I think can kind of be addressed ahead of time. And I'm going to actually backtrack a little bit while I'm sorting this in my head, but it all goes to this idea of intention. So like having an intention of what you want your music to sound like from the first point, and then having an intention of what your instrument should sound like. A lot of times, like first time players will go in, they'll say like, what kind of guitars do you have? And that can be really great. Like the studio might have a beautiful acoustic guitar or whatever it is that you're going to play. That could be a really high quality instrument. But if it doesn't match your intention of what the sound is in your head, it's not really getting you to a place. Mm-hmm. So that would be part of it. For first time people, I think that choosing personnel and a studio are very important. So what I mean by that is you want to find somebody that you can work with really well. So somebody that matches your creative pace, understands your vision for a song. And I think where that kind of splits off is if we have these two worlds of one, you have recording studios that are they're sort of a business place for rent by the hour. They will record your music. And, in my mind's eye, I'm kind of thinking of like the classic Sun Studios with Sam Phillips. He's got this storefront and you walk in and you say like, here's the money per hour, record my stuff. And then I'll walk out with my recording. Sam Phillips obviously did way more than that and was a genius, but that's like the idea is like, okay, here's a recording studio in town. Let's go there and record our music and then release it to the world or whatever. And then there's the other school of thought, which most studios are happy to do this too, is when you find a team that completely understands your vision, your intention is clear, they get it, and then you work together to strive toward that goal. If you go into, say, like a hard rock studio, and you're a jazz musician and you don't have a conversation with that engineer, and then the first time you hit the kick drum it comes out with like just a ton of sub and like a giant clack on the beater or whatever, like you're gonna be like, uh-oh, yeah. From the first downbeat, right? Yep. So like just having conversations I think is a really important thing ahead of time. So very like to kind of summarize it, I was a little all over the map there, but to summarize it, know your material, have a great idea of what your vision of the music is, and then try to have conversations with the team ahead of time. Communicate as much of that stuff as you can. Whoever kind of is willing to be a sponge and receive that is probably going to be a great fit for you. And if somebody's like, I got it, might be time to look for a different place. I don't know if that answers like kind of all over the place there. Sorry, but
no, I think that's fantastic information because, okay, so I'm going to brag on Mark for a second. When I went into the studio with him, he said, let's just do one song. Actually, I think we had this conversation in Nashville at a bar. So he was just like, I've listened to your EP and I want to do a song with you. So from working with Mark, I already had a good relationship with him. So I knew that I could talk to him on a certain level, and being able to have that kind of familiarity with somebody where you can be honest and you can really bounce ideas off of each other creatively. And that, feelings aren't going to get hurt. That's one of the reasons why I continue to do the rest of my EP with Mark, because creatively we were the perfect match.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Oh my God, it was a blast. I mean, I think we probably laughed more than we actually did work. That and drank coffee and ate bagels from Colin's Coffee.
Oh my gosh, that was great. Yeah, it was so much fun.
That entire process was just worth it, because every morning I would come in with coffee and like a sandwich or something from Colin's, and Mark would just look at me like, oh.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. Oh, that was great. Yeah, and the fun thing too is like when you have that kind of relationship and you have this understanding of this endpoint that you're both trying to go after feverishly, you get to do a lot of fun stuff, right? Like we had like stair microphones going into fuzz pedals, going into guitar amps, blasting back at the drums, and like stuff that we had conversations about these things before, and we listened to reference tracks. We were on I think there was like a Kaleo track that we were checking out at that time.
Yeah, that entire album, literally.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was being able to have those conversations up front instead of just being like, okay, I'm here for a recording session. Cool, put your drums up over there, and then I'll put the usual mics on it.
Right.
Instead of like, like this little pre-production thought of like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what we hear in our heads. Here's these other kind of reference things, and then let's take that and let's just go off the deep end and be like, this is just a throw everything at the canvas, everything at the canvas with specific guidelines so that the canvas doesn't become unmanageable.
Right.
But, like moving in this, consistent direction that we both kind of felt we were headed in. That's basically the best thing that you could do going into a recording studio, is just have a clear vision, have somebody with you that wants to see your vision realized.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So I'm sure that over, the course of the last few years, your taste in microphone have changed a little bit. But tell me right now, what is your favorite microphone that you are using consistently?
Man, well, yeah, one thing about microphones is I have definitely come to a place over my whole career where now I think that they are potentially the most important part of the entire chain, and I mean that from the beginning of recording all the way to mastering, and not just in the sense of like, what is the most high quality mic that'll get me all the detail and I can hear the spit running down the back of my throat. Gross. Like, but what is the paintbrush that gives me this particular picture, right? So I kind of went down this whole rabbit hole of like, I want to find all of these microphones that just have like character to them, and they don't have to be these like $7,000, amazing coveted microphones that are, modeled by every manufacturer out there or whatever.
All the connections I can feel within my veins. Every line around me stimulating. I feel it go straight to my brain. You raise them from the sky like you are flying without an airplane. Every letdown you bottom out, touchdown without a safety net. Don't expect their respect, they only serve what you'll forget. You didn't want and didn't need, but baby just made history.
It could be, this crappy, like, I have a bunch of little like PA microphones and intercom microphones that used to be sold with tape recorders that, were used in interviews and everything. And I'll throw those on drums sometimes just for a different effect. But just all of the basically like gathering a bunch of tools that when somebody says, I want to do, the Kaleo snare drum or whatever, it's like, it's not just about like, well, let's make that snare drum great, and then I'll start tweaking EQs either on the console or in the box. It's like, what microphone's going to get us there, and do we need to throw a fuzz pedal in front of it and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's like the one answer is, it's hard to give one, but on the same side, there are ones that work consistently well on a variety of sources, and it's like, if you had to live with that thing, you would be in a good spot. So on the affordable side, especially like for home musicians who are just trying to do stuff on their own, the Shure SM7 has become a favorite of mine, and it didn't start that way at all. It was something that I think as I matured, I understood how to use better. I love that microphone. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's the one that I have in my home studio that's always plugged in now. And then on a little bit of a higher end, I'm a huge fan of Lauten microphones. And that's Lauten. And specifically, they have a microphone called the Atlantis that is kind of like a FET 47 condenser, very usable on so many different sources. And it's my favorite kick drum out mic. And then also it's really great for a variety of vocalists. On the little bit of a higher end side is their Eden model, which is like a Tube 47 kind of a vibe. It's not exactly that, but also very versatile, has a little bit more of the spit rolling down the back of your throat thing. And super, super useful. That one's also an amazing drum overhead mic, which is really fun with it. And those mics both have these different voicing patterns, which will change the characteristics of the microphone, which is part of why I love them so much, is because just with those guys, I can get where I need to get pretty quickly using the voice selectors. And then I'm going to name one more just while we're being geeky. I just got this guy. It's the AEA R88A. So it's the active version of this microphone. And what that is, 2 ribbons in a Blumline configuration. So like a stereo microphone, and probably the best overhead that I've ever used on drums. It's amazingly like just balanced and doesn't get harsh, and picks up an amazing picture of the kit, but also amazing on B3, on acoustic guitars, and even if you just use it in mono on a vocal, sounds amazing. Amazing on horns. So that's one to check out too. And there's a for all my engineering nerd friends, there's an amazing series done by John Cubertini, I think I'm pronouncing that right, called One Mic. And he records entire bands just using this R88 microphone and placing it in the right spot in the room. And that's an amazing lesson in mic placement. Because it's like you can get that balance. It's a stereo microphone, so you still get this beautiful stereo recording. And based on just placement alone, how you can get this kind of perfect mix. And that, if you ever try to do that, even just with an acoustic guitar and a vocal, that'll teach you a lot about mixing right away, but doing it with microphones on the way in and getting the picture down to tape. So
that is awesome.
Yeah.
That's freaking cool. I can't wait to share that with a few of my students. Actually, I have a couple kids who are kind of dipping their toe in the whole production thing, and they're like, well, what microphones do I get? So this is fantastic. I can't wait to share this episode.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a really fun series too. That R88 series is great. So
awesome.
It's a good lesson. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we've talked about your favorite microphone. So what about plugins? What are your favorite plugins to use?
Man, that's a fun topic. Lately, so on the whole, Universal Audio for sure. Their stuff sounds absolutely amazing. I've used the analog units. These things feel like the analog units. There's a responsiveness that you get from them that just isn't always present in other plugins. And they've done this incredibly meticulous job of modeling things down to this component level and getting the actual feel and sound right. And their plugins sound fantastic to me. Which, like, to quickly dive off into like audio interfaces, they're on a cheaper level. Their Apollo Twin has 2 preamps built into it, and they do this thing called unison technology, where they're using their models of vintage Neve consoles and SSLs and APIs and all that. They change the actual impedance of the mic preamp and do a bunch of things to try and match the characteristics. I don't own a 1073 Neve console or an 8068, but I have a Neve V55 series console. And when I'm side by side with these 2 units, I don't feel any sort of lack while tracking with the Universal Audio stuff, which is saying a lot, because it doesn't break down and require me to pull channel strips out and resolder them, when they go bad and all that. But it's just an amazing system, and it's honestly, it's something that, had the Apollo series been around when I was building VMS, there's a pretty good chance that room would be all Apollos. And we have some really gorgeous converters that are high end and all that stuff, and the Neve console and everything. But from like just a workflow, get to the point as quickly as possible, the UA plugins and their whole system just makes such a big difference. And then I'll throw one other thing into the pack here, and that is the Fab Filter suite of plugins. Cool. If I have my Fab Filter stuff and my UA stuff, I can make a record. It's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive into Pure Mix. Tell me about what you do for Pure Mix and who you get to work with and, maybe even some of the things that you've learned as, being a part of the team.
Yeah, so much. I've learned so much. So the sort of backstory with that is, it's interesting, like to hear, I think, because it's something that was kind of outside of my character to do. So I went to a master class with Fab DuPont at his studio, Flux Studios in New York City, that Pure Mix was holding, and I did that because I kind of felt like I had reached this plateau point where it was like I need to start just finding people that I think are just amazing and just talking to them, because through like self-study, I felt like I wasn't really, there was like a point where I was making tons and tons of progress, and then I felt it plateau off, and I was like, okay, I got to go to the next step here. And I think that's just like making sure that I am like the dumbest person in the room, So like, how do I do that? So I found this masterclass that Fab was hosting, and admired his work for a long time. He's incredible. So obviously, like, that was a no-brainer. So first day was at a studio called MSR, which was in Times Square, and since has shut down and been turned into condos, like most of the New York studios, unfortunately. Then days 2 and 3 were at Flux. So while we were at Flux, I knew about this because I was a Pure Mix subscriber, so that's why I was there. Fab was talking about Pure Mix and the direction that it was headed in, and he was talking about how they wanted to build this immense Pro Tools course that would be like this all-inclusive from A to Z. So, if you were just starting out in Pro Tools, you could start at the beginning of this thing and like learn whatever it is that you want to learn. It would be like indexed by function and then all those things. So, um, just like real fast, the way that I got into engineering was I was at Ohio State for computer programming. I was in a band, and we went to a studio in Columbus named John Schwab. This is like in the, very like 2000, 2001 maybe. We went to the studio to make our record, and we were there at like an 11, it was like an 11 a.m. session on a Tuesday. And I remember asking the engineer, like, so it's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. Is this what you do for a living? And he's like, yeah, and I felt really dumb for asking, because it was like, oh, we're here paying him money. Of course he is. But up to that point, I only knew recording people that were like, they did it as a hobby. And then I just thought that the people who make, the records that I was buying were like this ethereal thing that only lived in Los Angeles and New York and Nashville, right. And they didn't exist. That was like, they were up in the heavens somewhere, like sending records down. I don't know what I thought, but anyway, we were making this record with Pro Tools, and it was a very, very early version of Pro Tools. So I was in school for computer programming. I wasn't excelling at college. I wasn't excited about being there, and I just wanted to be making music 100% of the time and everything. So we're at the studio, and I see he's using Pro Tools, and I'm like, so you do this for a living, and you're using computers to do it. Cool. Where do I sign up? So I immediately found the Conservatory of Recording Arts in Arizona, and like dropped out of computer programming, went there. So anyway, like going back to the Pure Mix Masterclass, Fab wanted to make this giant Pro Tools course, and Pro Tools was essentially what got me into making records. So when I found out, that he's using computers, I bought like the cheapest Pro Tools rig I could get at that time. And I read the manual front to back. I was obsessed about it. I wanted to know everything. I would go through the menu and look for something I didn't know what it was. And then I would go find it in the manual and try to figure out what it was doing and all that. So that was like my thing, was I wanted to be this super fast Pro Tools operator, which at the time was actually a job. You could get gigs just being the Pro Tools op. So I wanted to be like the fastest Pro Tools op there was. So anyway, like we're at this master class, and at the end of it, there's like a wine party, kind of a goodbye thing on the rooftop. And something completely out of character for me. I've never been one to do this, especially at that point. I was kind of pretty shy in this way. And I went up to him and I was like, hey, I think I could make that Pro Tools course that you're talking about. I have some video experience from doing the CMU show that I mentioned earlier with the local bands. I have video experience, and I'm I might be the biggest Pro Tools nerd that you'll meet. So he was like, all right, great, call me Monday. So I did, and then we started work on that project, and Pure Mix was growing very, very fast at that time. And basically through like some reorg in the company, we sort of stopped that project and moved in a little bit of a different direction into mixing videos with giant engineers with giant songs. And that reorganization and sort of repositioning of the company led to me ultimately becoming the content manager for the website, which is like a fast step from going, like sheepishly saying, I think I could do this thing, to okay, cool, you're in charge of content for the site, and it's a super exciting job, and it's like one that I never saw coming in a million years. And basically what we do is Pure Mix is a online tutorial site for people who want to learn how to make great records. And the focus is on mixing, but we also cover recording as well. So you can learn how to, record vocals well, and that, that goes into mic placement, and you can de-ess the vocal with putting the mic in the right spot. So we teach things like that instead of using de-essers and all that. But then we also teach mixing in a pretty extreme way. So we will find songs that we love, that we think sound amazing. So one example of one that I brought to the platform was our hometown guys, 21 Pilots, put out their third record, and they had a couple songs on there that I thought the mixes were incredible. So I just, who mixed the song, and go and do a little detective work. And then there was a guy named Adam Hawkins, which I think is an amazing mixer. Everybody should check him out and his body of work. But yeah, my job is to like contact him, set up a shoot, and what that entails is also the music licensing side. So it's also working with the band's management and coming to an agreement on that, like who's going to get paid what, working out advances. And then we take the entire video crew. We flew out to LA to Adam's studio at the time, and he pulls up the multi-track for their single My Blood and mixes it, from start to finish on camera, explaining what he does every step of the way and why he's doing it. Most importantly, the why. And that's really what Pure Mix focuses on, is the why of what people are doing, instead of like just they're using this plugin and I need to go buy this plugin. It's like, well, the plugin's not important. It's what did he hear that made him decide he needed to compress, or what was, the vision or whatever. So that's basically what we do with the online mixing side of it. And then we also do tons and tons of live streams. I have the honor of kind of being just in the room with Andrew Sheps and a lot of amazing people on Mondays. We have a weekly show, and for anybody who doesn't know, Andrew Sheps is another incredible mixing engineer. He's Adele and a whole bunch of other people. I'll spare the name dropping, but we'll get people on there, just absolute heroes of the mixing community and the production community. We'll have them on for a talk show, and those things are really intense. They can go for up to like 5 hours sometimes, and then we do a Q&A at the end of them. So that's another thing I'm doing. And then just figuring out like, okay, what's our roadmap for content? What videos are we going to put out? When are we putting them out? Working with the video team to get those videos edited and across the finish line. And yeah, it can be pretty random too. Like we're still a small team, and things change daily. But yeah, it's a lot of fun for sure. And I get to sit in rooms with people that my whole goal was like, I need to find people where I'm the dumbest person in the room, and I'm definitely the dumbest person in the room. So, so it's great. Like I got what I asked for. So, yeah. Yeah.
It's the first time in the history of ever that somebody has actually gotten what they asked for, and that being the case.
Yeah, especially in music. Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I'm so grateful for that job. It's I obviously like my own skills in the studio have just like I've grown. I can see it in myself that I've grown at this exponential rate just as a result of that job. And that also led to I want to shout out one of my biggest mentors is John Paterno, who I met through Pure Mix shoots. he and I did one-on-one things for a while. He does a thing called mix therapy, where like he teaches mixing one-on-one, and I got to be one of the first students for that. And like that combined with like all the shoots and being able to, you know, ask people like Andrew and John and Fab just questions about what, you know, whatever I'm dealing with, it's just been this exponential growth thing for me. That like when I listen to my work from, you know, before that time compared to now, it's, you know, it's a good feeling going back and being like, okay, there's good improvement here, you know, and pretty exponentially. I don't know that I would have gotten to the same place if it wasn't for Pure Mix. I can probably say no, you know, pretty confidently. So very grateful for the opportunity.
That's incredible, Mark. I'm so very happy for you. So congratulations on everything that you're doing with Pure Mix, and you know, and also the growth of VMS. I mean, you're a fantastic individual, but your skills are, in my opinion, they're unparalleled. And I mean, and I haven't even had the chance to work with you ever since you started working with Pure Mix. So to hear you talk about your own personal growth is just, it's really inspiring. So congratulations, man.
Thank you for all that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still the dumbest person in the room. Yeah. Thank you very much, though, and same to you. It's been amazing to watch your growth, and I'm hoping that we get to hang out more, you know, outside of this stuff, and you know, find our way back to a bar to have a drink sometime, because it's always amazing talking to you. So I want to hear more about everything that's going on and all that you're up to musically and all of that. So thank you for doing all that you're doing. Thank you for your art. And yeah, I'm super honored to be here. So thank you.
Well, thanks, man.
You raise them from the sky. Baby just made history.
Oh, what a cool episode. So I hope you guys really enjoyed all of the sweet input that Mark gave you about, you know, plugins you could use, microphones to use, and what it means to really build your team when you go into a studio. So if you're a first-time artist that has never been into a studio and never really worked with a team on your music, it is so crucial and so essential to that entire process and making sure that you feel comfortable with whoever you're working with. This is some sage advice that I truly hope all of you take to heart, especially if you're a new artist and you've never cut your own music in a studio. Maybe you've never even set foot inside of a studio. Hopefully this opens that picture up a little bit for you, kind of pulls back the blinds on the veil, if you will. So make sure that you check Mark out at markabramsaudio.com. You can also find him at vaughanmusicstudios.com as well. Go take a tour if you're in Ohio. I highly recommend it. And if you want to learn more about us, you can find us at musiconthemovestudios.com/ParadoxJukebox. Also, too, if you like what you're hearing in each of these episodes, friends, please do me a big, big favor and go give me a review. I would absolutely be in your debt for forever. If you want to recommend maybe an artist or an industry professional who you think would belong on an episode, please reach out to us at musiconthemovestudios@gmail.com. We would love, love, love your input. So thanks again for listening. I'm Caitie Thompson. You can find me at CaitieThompsonmusic.com. Peace out.